I realize when my grandmother is out of the room, leaving me alone with a police detective, that is the brass ring moment. And I say to him, I'm like, my mother would never leave me. Something has happened to him. He's done something to her. I don't know. Give me your card. I go back to school tomorrow. I will tell you everything. It's not safe for me to talk here. But instead of looking at me like I'm a crazy little kid, Dave Messmer is looking at me like, And he's also, because I'm so articulate and composed, he's just kind of like, I'm interested in talking to this kid. He's not he's not this emotional little kid. So the next day I go to school, and first thing I go to the principal's office, call this guy, Dave Messmer, and he comes down to the school. And it's so weird when I tell this story, when you think about like, this would never happen nowadays. Like a cop with a kid and the whole thing, a doctor and all this, it would just never happen. But thank God it happened this way. And I just sit there with Dave Messmer for hours, and I lay out the entire time, because I have a memory like an elephant, I still do. And I lay out the entirety of my parents' relationships, from probably when I can remember when I was born to Sherry, my father's proclivity for violence, what was going on in the home, my mother, the list, what she said to me, all the things, just everything. And I say to Dave, when I go home, my grandmother will be downstairs. She'll be paying attention to my sister. She'll be cooking dinner. I'm going to go upstairs. And I was like, we have a crawl space. And we have these bookshelves. I'm going to pull the bookshelves out of the wall, and I'm going to look in the crawl space for my mother's body. I got to say this to him. And I said, I'm going to start looking for clues. If my mother didn't leave with this one purse, then something has happened to her, because she would never leave without this purse. And, trying to find all these things. And he's definitely looking at me like, okay, this is a special little guy here. But that's what I do. I go home and I start pulling these, and looking and all this, and okay, put it back or whatever. And I start making these notes, and my father comes home with like scratches on his hands. My father always had really well manicured hands, and these scratches. Had some bruises on his arm. Another time he asked me to rub his back with Bengay because he's sore from moving boxes. But I'm making mental note after mental note after mental note. And every time I go to school, I'm calling Dave Messmer. My father started bringing his divorce lawyer over every night, and they would have meetings about God is when I'd be trying to like do my homework, but like listen in, because they were meeting in the dining room. I'd be in the living room. I get caught all the time by my grandmother. Like, stop listening to your father. But I'm making all these notes of like what they're talking about. And every night, mind you, so I'm talking to Dave Messmer while I'm at school. Every night, Dave Messmer is coming to the house, ringing the doorbell, and the door opens, and it's his attorney. And I'm looking at Dave, and so the whole time all this is going on, there's this trust that like, I'm not going to break character and he's not going to break character, because he's not going to say, well, I just talked to your son earlier, that we have this bond, which I think is just, again, so unique, because this just wouldn't happen nowadays, right?
So, and the divorce attorney, he was trying to actively get a divorce from a woman that quote unquote had left the family. Is that okay? Got it.
Yeah, because my mother had filed for divorce, and I ended up finding out in November of that year. But
right, so she'd already filed, right?
Yeah,
okay,
I didn't. I wasn't privy to all this as a kid, right?
Sure.
So, but so all these things are happening, and every day I'm going to school and I'm calling Dave and I'm giving him then my father started, who was a very violent, aggressive machismo guy. He would just chastise me or call me a little pussy or all these horrible names when I would cover my eyes, like watching movies that were violent or sexy or something like that. So I'm playing a video game, and he comes up and he sees it, and it was a fighting game called Double Dragon 2. And he goes, oh, this is a violent game. I never would have bought this for you if I'd known this is a violent. And I'm like, wait, are we in an alternate universe? Like this, you're Mr. Macho, he just would have he had these weird behavioral changes. And again, every night, the family meeting about where mommy could be. And I remember saying my mom wanted always to take me to Toronto when I was a kid. She talked about going there. And he's like, oh, maybe she's in Toronto. Maybe she's shopping, or maybe she's doing this, or maybe. like all these like hypotheses floating around. And I'm just like, what is going on? Am I like living in an alternate universe? So about halfway through, this is January 1989, about halfway through the month, my father, who I'm watching like a hawk every day he comes home, he says, I'm going to go pick some paperwork up at my office. Do you want to come with me? And I'm like, oh yeah, of course, Daddy. I want to come with you. So we go to his office to pick up paperwork, and on the way back, he stops at a gas station. He goes in to the gas station to pay for gas or whatever, and he was eating mallow cups, the mallow marshmallow cup things at the time. I remember Sherry would buy them for you, boxes of them.
Delicious. I will give him that.
I've never had those before. I've never had, I'll take your word for it. So he's eating these mallow cups or whatever. So he goes in, but I'm watching him through the windshield, and I just start rummaging through his truck, and I open up the center console and I find 2 photographs. One is of a house that I've never seen before in my life. And the second one is of his girlfriend, Sherry Campbell, and her 2 kids sitting in front of a fireplace that's wrapped in plastic. And I'm like, okay, this is the same location. She's connected to this somehow. I got to tell Dave. So obviously, the first thing I see I'm like, okay, these 2 locations are connected, or these 2 photographs are connected. I got to tell Dave. So the next day I go to school, call him up. Hey, look, I found these photographs. Because I knew her kids. I knew Sherry. I knew what her kids, I played with her kids. Like I knew. I'm like, this is weird. And obviously Dave had already done his research and had pinpointed that there was a house in Erie. So that was already something that was on his radar, unbeknownst to me, right? But then this is like, again, that was around mid-January. Now we're getting into like January 19th, 20th. And my father's behavior is getting more and more, he's not violent or aggressive or anything. No anger, no temper, so like that in and of itself is weird. But I could tell that he's stressed, like visibly under duress for some reason. And again, because every night Dave Messmore is coming to the house to try to talk to us, and he's got his lawyer there, and they're meeting. I could just tell that he's under some sort of pressure. Yeah. And probably like, oh, the cops keep coming, and I'm not giving them anything. Why are they coming? I don't think he thinks me or talking to anyone at the time. So my father says to me, he goes, Collier, it's been, or Bumper, I know it's been really hard on you with Mommy leaving us in such a state. You're not having her. I have a medical conference in Florida, and I think we should do a father and son trip, just you and me. Now, every year my family would go to these medical conferences a couple of times in Clearwater Beach, Florida. But they were in the spring. They were never like a couple weeks after Christmas. And why they were in the spring mostly is because there's Busch Gardens, there's Disney, there's all these things that you can go to in Florida, and it's spring break for kids. And so they try to do it around a family type of thing, right? And I realized at that moment, I've been able to swim since I was 5 years old. No doubt I'm going to drown in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not coming back from Florida. So the next day I go to school. This is I think this is probably now around like January 21st. And I say, Dave, he wants to take me to Florida. I'm scared to death. Like, I'm not coming back. And I don't hear from Dave for a couple of days. And what happens is on the morning of January 24th, 1990, I get woken up by 2 agents from Children's Services, Child Protective Services. And they say, look, and I hear all this commotion in the house and everything. My grandmother's yelling, like, what is going on? I'm like, look, we're gonna take you. You need to pack a bag. We got 20 minutes to pack a bag and get everything. And I said, and so I packed some stuff for my sister and myself. I said, can I take my dog? And they say, we'll come back for your dog. Never saw my dog again. Yeah, bummer. Like awful, like awful. Just a bummer, awful for me. But I have a happy ending about that story. But yeah, I packed the bags and I'm coming downstairs with them, and I look, and in the house there are, I don't know, 5, 10 women in white lab coats, men and women, white lab coats, gadgets. They've got this thing, they're moving on the floor. Messmore's there serving a search warrant. I see the cops outside the house, lights in the street, the whole thing. And I'm just like, because I already knew, like, so my mother's missing. I hear everything that happens on December 31st, New Year's Eve. So I already know that, like, life is not going to be the same. Mm-hmm. Then that happens, and I'm like, okay, we've really crossed the Rubicon here, because I know that if they're not finding anything, my dad knows that the jig is up. Like, your son sold you out. Yeah. He's going to know that it was me giving the information to the police, which is terrifying. Terrifying. I mean, and the whole time in the house, I know that too, like, because he's coming home. I know the danger that I'm in, but at the same time, I'm so determined. I'm not even thinking about that. It's like, it's you or me, buddy. Like, I'm going to find out what happened to my mother, like, by hook or by crook.
How close you were to it being him? If he had taken you on that trip?
Oh, done. I never would have come back.